Okay, I think the hood is going to cooperate. My name is Rosalind J. I am the pastor of the Temple of the Jedi Order. I am also a senior knight within the Temple of the Jedi Order. And before I begin answering some of your questions, I'd like to make a disclaimer, and that is that the religion Jediism, the practice of Jediism, is very young in its belief system, and as a result, is very dynamic and always evolving, changing with every new generation. And so, what I will be giving you is my understanding of how Judaism is practiced in the Temple of the Jedi Order. And I encourage you to explore the wider Jedi community, which is vast. And I can give you names of individuals whom you might connect with who have a wealth of knowledge and information in this path at your request. Now, let's get to the questions. Sure, I got my document. Can you give us a brief history of how Jediism started? I cannot, actually. Jediism establishment date or start date is also up for debate. We can say that it began in 1977 when some of the oldest members of our community began applying some of the principles of Judaism to their life after the release of Star Wars: A New Hope. We can say that it started in the 1990s with the advent of the internet and chat rooms, and people began communicating about this practice. Or we could say it started in the 2000s when members in various countries began to place Jediism as a religion on the census forms for their country. Judaism's start date is actually up for debate. Our site, which actually started by John Henry Phelan in 2005. And so that is the answer to question number one. Question number two begins, how does one become a priest, part of the synod, or part of the council? Priest is actually a member of the clergy, and a person can become a member of the clergy by completing the seminary program after they have already completed the IP. Once they complete the seminary program, they can be granted a ministerial license and they can be ordained at the rank of knight once they complete their handbook. Um, the synod is actually a group of individuals within the clergy who are collectively charged with the leadership and uh, direction of the clergy. It consists of myself, the pastor. I have two assistant pastors, one in charge of seminary and one in charge of outreach. And then I have two secretaries, one in charge of the secretary, one functioning as secretary to the clergy, and one functioning as secretary to the synod. There are also various bishops who serve as advisors to me. Your question continues. How does one become a member of the council? The council is actually someone becomes a member of the council by being voted into the council by the current sitting council. Or by occupying an office with a council seat. For example, my office, pastor or vice president of clerical affairs, comes with an automatic council seat. But not all seats on the council are office seats, and not all office seats come directly with a council seat. I hope that answers your question. Number three says, what are some of the Jedi principles? Basic Jedi principles can be found in our doctrine. Let me just read a bit of it. Hold on just a second while I find it. Uh, um, home, go home. Um, believe in the force and in the inherent worth of all life within it, in the sanctity of of the human person. We oppose the use of torture and cruel or unusual punishment, including the death penalty. We believe in a society governed by laws grounded in reason and compassion, not fear or prejudice. In a society that does not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or circumstances of birth, such as gender, ethnicity, and national origin. In an ethic of reciprocity and how moral concepts are not absolute, but vary by culture, religion, and over time. In the influence of spiritual growth, wait, no, in the positive influence of spiritual growth and awareness on society, in the importance of freedom of conscience and self determination within religious, political, and other structures, in the separation of religion and government, and in the freedoms of speech, association, and expression. That's just a few of our basic principles. There also are others. The 16 teachings and the 21 maxims are some that immediately come to mind. There are also the code and the creed. The code is your basic code. There is no emotion, there is peace, there is no ignorance, there is knowledge, etc. And then there's the creed, which was actually borrowed from Saint Francis of Assisi, I believe. And so those are some of our basics things. And but like everything in Jediism, that's constantly being formed, reformed, changed, and improved upon with each generation. So, so the next question asks, "What are so? How extensive is the training to become a Jedi?" And I think it's really important that you answer that. You asked that question. How is it? How extensive is it to become a Jedi? I believe that being a Jedi is not a matter of training. Personally, I believe that being a Jedi is a matter of belief. Now that's your basic Jedi. I am a practicing. I am trying to uphold the principles as I understand them. I'm trying to uphold the what I picked up from the fiction or what I picked up in life that I think might apply to Jediism. Now, depending on who you talk to, there's going to be different answers to that question. To become a Jedi, but for me, to become a Jedi is just a matter of belief. Because you start with a creed and it says, I'm a Jedi, an instrument of peace. And that there's no prerequisite for that except for belief. Belief. I am a Jedi, an instrument of peace. Living like that. That's actually a line from our code. And everyone recites that, regardless of if they're a knight or a novice. Everyone recites that at the end of a live service or a ceremony. There's this a collective recitation of the code. And so no one is barred from doing that, not even guests. And so when we make that declaration, I'm a Jedi, an instrument of peace, we then we live by that declaration. I am a Jedi, an instrument of peace. Then we are also Jedi. But to become a Jedi Knight, we do have a rank structure. Our rank structure is not that extensive, but it is very linear. In order to become a Jedi, you have to start on the road, right? So you start with registering for an account, you become a guest. Then you fill out an application, you become a member. Then you start the IP, you become a novice, you're studying. Then you've completed the IP and you become an initiate, you're ready for an apprenticeship. Then a teaching master chooses you to become a student and you become an apprentice. Then you finish the apprenticeship and you become a knight. Then you continue some self learning and get your bachelor's of divinity and you become a senior knight. Then you help three people on their road to knighthood. You help them You take them as an apprentice, and they become a knight. That's You have to do that 3 times in order to become a master. Now, on the other side, there is the clergy ranks, and those are licensed minister, ordained minister, and senior minister, and they are currently in flux. They used to be very there used to be different titles. There used to be licensed minister, deacon, priest, and bishop, and those have been changed just recently. Um, Licensed minister is still the same. Ordained clergy person has folded in deacon and priest, and bishop became senior ordained clergy person or senior ordained minister. So our rules are, in order to become an initiate, you have to complete the IP, the initiates program, and the IP should take about 60 days. And if you complete that earlier, you'll still have to wait the 60 days in order to even be considered an initiate. And then our apprenticeships take about 1 to 2 years, depending on the circumstances of the apprenticeship and the readiness of the knight or apprentice for knighthood. It can stretch longer, but the minimum is actually 6 months. But I've never seen an apprenticeship that lasted 6 months. They tend to move on to the year, 8 months to a year, and then to get to senior night takes a lot of dedication. It's about 2 years of study, and that's pretty continuous study in order to complete it. And that's average. It's about the length of 2 apprenticeships, and that's all self-paced and self-graded, or as then master happens actually when you help 3 people onto knighthood, and so that can take any number of years, depending on the readiness of knights and the length of the apprenticeship. And you always want to make good knights, so you don't want to rush the process. So that can take any number of years. um, so that's number 4. I hope that was helpful. Number 5 was, what kind of services have you personally done as pastor? I've been pastor for about almost 6 months, and I haven't had the pleasure of doing any rituals or services uh, that one might traditionally consider a pastor might do. I did do a lot of life services as a member of the clergy, um, in former time before I became pastor, and I did a lot of stuff when I was a member of the synod as well. But Right now, I just haven't done anything in terms of ritualistic services. But my service to the temple is to its members, and so I spend a lot of time working with members, either in an open setting or in a confidential setting, helping them get through some of their issues, helping them learn some new skills. In terms of getting through the hero's journey, dealing with some of the struggles there. So I spend a lot of time doing that, and then I also spend some time on council. So it's a lot of moving the vision forward for the temple, and helping to sort of keep the lights on, keep everything running smoothly. So that means some things like being the direct report to council for clergy. A lot of the not initiates, initiatives that come from council do go directly through me and then to the council. And so I spend a lot of time serving as the advocate for those initiatives in council, and also providing counsel for council. So spending a lot of time being that sort of spiritual compass to matters that come to council, as the representative of the temple in spiritual matters. Number 6, do you have any? I'm sorry, did I miss? Um, do you have any traditions? If so, can you describe them? As I understand, and as I have come to know in the 5 years that I've been here, there have, unless I'm not remembering correctly, not been any traditions related to the Temple of the Jedi Order. Um, but because of the diversity of the temple and its members, a lot of individual members do have their own specific traditions that help them in this journey. And there's that. And I think that as we get older as a temple, we may grow into some traditions that we create ourselves. Um, Number seven, what are some of the titles people have on the temple forums, and what do they mean, and how can people get those titles? I did spend some time on question number four, I think, answering that question, but I'll rehash that kind of easily, quickly. So there are two sort of trajectories, one on top of the other, kind of. So there's your basic temple ranks, and that is guest member, initiate. I'm sorry, guest member, novice, initiate, uh, apprentice, knight, and senior knight and master. And so those are your basic temple ranks. Everybody has those ranks, and you get those ranks by completing certain tasks. So you become a guest when you register on the forum. You become a member when you fill out an application. You become a novice when you start the IP. I think when you get to lesson three, they make you a novice. When you complete the initiates program, you become an initiate. And then when you complete your apprenticeship, you become when you are chosen by a teaching master become an apprentice, you become your rank turns to a apprentice. And then when you complete your apprenticeship, you get knighted. Then you are a knight, and then when you do your self study for 2 years, you can become a senior knight. Then, when you complete, help three members get to knighthood, you can become a master. And then on the other side, there are the temple clergy ranks, and you can start studying the seminary program at the rank of initiate. And after you complete the seminary program, you can get a seminary and a license, and that allows you to perform a lot of ceremonies, to do live services, things like that. Then you can become ordained, and the ordination allows for you to help people in a confidential setting, and also to ordain others. Um, then there's the senior ordained clergy person. Typically, that has been either really strong clergy leaders or pastors in the clergy that have been granted that rank, senior ordained clergy person or bishop, formerly bishop. And so you can be granted that after you actually have to, in order to gain that rank. I think you have to be chosen by council to get the rank of bishop. Um, and so that's that. And then there are some other titles which are just granted to people. For example, there's honorary rank, which is Grand Master. That's fallen out of practice, but that is the rank that people who have done a great service to the temple or spent a lot of time or have spent a extraordinary amount of time here at the temple providing service to the temple can be granted at the request of council. So senior, sorry, not senior, Grand Master is actually not any higher in terms of rank than Master. It's an honorary rank that is given to members who devote a lot of time and energy to the temple and its members, um, and do great service there. Then there are matriarch and patriarch. Those are individuals. Nish Pabol is the matriarch of the temple, and She's been here since its founding. Then Brother John is the patriarch. He's the founder of the temple. He's been here since its inception. There are no other titles that I can think of that warrant any further discussion. If I forget something and you find it somewhere, I can certainly add that. Uh, yeah, so there's that. Next. Seven, so eight. What specific parts of Star Wars directly correlate to your religion? Honestly, I don't believe that there is too much of Star Wars that correlates with our religion. We try very hard not to appear to be a fan club of sorts. And so, what we have done is we do have the titles, Jedi's, and the basic rank structure. But beyond that, there isn't much. Uh, what we've done actually as a temple is to go ahead and look at Star Wars and see Star Wars, like much of the fiction of society, is actually about a hero's journey. A hero's journey or monomyth was popularized by Joseph Campbell, and it's his lectures on that or interview with Mr. Moyers is actually part of our IP, but the monomyth is actually 17 stages of the hero's journey. And what we did was we said, okay, Star Wars is a hero's journey, right? And so we're going to look at the hero's journey and we're going to see where are we, right, as people, and look at where we are and see about how we can get further along that journey. And you'll notice that it's not a path to a goal, right? You don't want to, you're not looking for something. It's actually a circle. And so you can finish one hero's journey and go on to the next. Finish one hero's journey and go on to the next. You'll never get to the end of your hero's journey so much because you get your boon and then you go back. You go back to your people, then another journey opens up. And you complete that, you get your boon, you go back, and you continue that for the rest of your life. And what we discovered as a temple is that everyone is on a hero's journey, whether or not they call themselves Jedi. So we're very open to people regardless of their affiliation. If they're not Jedi, fine, they're not Jedi. But we maintain a very open environment here at the Temple of the Jedi Order because we want to engage with people at that level. We're all on a hero's journey, right? So we want to help people move to the stages of the hero's journey. So that takes a lot of discussion, connection, and moving towards and advice, helping people move through the stages, right? So that's what we did, and that's what Jediism is fundamentally about. Yes, it takes on Star Wars terminology, but at the end of the day, it's basically about hero's journey and moving in that cycle. So what I think is really important in this journey is that I myself, Rosalind, can be on a hero's journey, and I can be the hero in my own journey, but I can also be an integral part in someone else's journey. I can be the spiritual aid. I can be the mentor. I can, be a temptation. Why not? And so that's really important as well. Realizing where you are on someone else's journey as well, and how you're providing help so that you can connect with them, and you connect in a certain way with them and help them on their hero's journey as well. So that's why Temple of the Jedi Order is here, because we not only do we don't want to do this life alone. We don't want to do our journeys alone. We want people to connect too. And so we found that in Jediism, and I hope it continues on and on uh, for uh, until after I leave this earth, I hope others continue on in that hero's journey as well. And so number nine was, what are some of the days of significance and why they're so significant? Our heroes days of significance are actually divided into three types, and so one of them can be important days for the temple. And for example, December 25th is Temple of the Jedi Order founding day. And so it's our anniversary of when the temple was founded in 2005. It was actually founded on Christmas Day, 2005. May 25th um, is actually the commemoration of the first day Star Wars A New Hope was released in 1977. So we celebrate that, as well as May the 4th, because it sounds like May the Force be with you. And that's kind of cool. So that's something that not only we celebrate, but also a lot of other people in larger communities celebrate. I think we got a pretty big group of people who celebrate all the world over. We have Halloween Day, which we are on October 31st, which is actually Youngling Day. We try very hard on Halloween to invest in our youth, and really look at what our hope of the future looks like. And so we spend a lot of time with our youth that day. And then we also have Harmony Day. So we have significant days in which we look at principles and attributes we want to cultivate in our life. Harmony Day is September 21st. So that's really important. And when I became pastor, I realized that our dates of significance had actually stopped being significant. um, and so I wanted to restore that. And I actually now encourage some temple, not temple service, but local community service. So we spent some time on Harmony Day doing community service in our communities. And then on October 24th, we did the same thing to celebrate Youngling Day before Halloween, because Halloween we'd be dressing up and frolicking with the youth and enjoying some time there. Um, have there been any trials you or your religions have gone through, such as being mocked by your family or the public, or people trying to attack the temple? Um, I will say that mockery does happen. It can be on an individual level, and it also can be on a collective level. On an individual level, we spend a lot of time in seminary talking about this. How do we deal with mockery? How do we help others deal with mockery, bullying, things like that? But in the end, it'll be the individual's decision, and it'll be their own inner strength that moves them towards discovering how they want to negotiate relationships with people that don't see their religion in the same way. There are a lot of misconceptions about Judaism because it is so new. There's a lot of, oh, you worship George Lucas, or you worship Yoda, or where's your lightsaber, where's your robe, as a part of mockery. And I think that some have come to accept it, especially if they're have spent a lot of time practicing Jediism or Jedi realism. And so we come to kind of it sort of goes off like ducks off of water off a duck's back. But for the newer people in our religion, it can be really difficult and disconcerting to be mocked. So we do help them through that. But again, it'll be their own inner strength that'll move them towards their own wholeness as it relates to this religion. And so we want to give them the best chance to move forward, but we don't want to push them in any direction. We do want to be open and honest with them that it is going to happen. There may be some mockery, but we also want to teach them how they personally, individually, can deal with it. And then there are some collective mockery. There is some collective mockery that does happen. There's a lot of sometimes some news about Jediism. I can't remember any of the actual outlets that have done that and made a mockery of it. And that's part of how we deal with it. It does happen, but we're only news for a short period of time, and so we know that this is valuable to us, and nobody wants to be mocked, but we understand that we're only news for a while. In the end, nobody will be, mocking us for an extended period of time. They'll move on, and we'll continue on with our journeys. It's not going to stop us unless we let it. And so we just have that sort of view about this, and that's something that we know happens, and we know how to deal with it on a collective level. And then the last question you asked, how did you personally find Jediism and what actually speaks to you? I actually found Jediism on May the 4th, actually, of 2012. Um, I was a grad student in San Diego State, and a lot of personal things were going on in my life, a lot of upheaval with my family, and a lot of changes in my church. And I was actually looking for something new in terms of a religious experience, and I ended up flipping to a Star Wars marathon on one of the cable channels um, in my hometown, and getting uh, not really hooked on the fiction so much, but hooked on the idea of Jedi. And I knew the seed was planted, I think, early October that year. Sorry, not early October the year prior. And then in March, I found Temple of the Jedi Order, and I was under the impression that it was actually a real temple, and I was prepared to move there with no money in my pocket. But that thought soon died because I realized I had no money, and I realized also that it was a website. And what really attracted me to Temple of the Jedi Order was the lessons of the IP, and I came to the realization that I could learn some of the principles and I could apply some of the principles of Jediism, of what I had seen Jedi to be, to my own life if I just sat down and did some learning. And so 5 years later, I'm still learning, I'm still unlearning, and what keeps me here not only is the lessons, but also the relationships I've formed with others, and the connections I've made with them are really, really important. And also, as newer people come to the Temple of the Jedi Order, I do want to be that sort of person that a lot of people were for me when I first was making my steps in the journey. I want to be the sort of person that people can connect with, that can rely on, can look to as an example of how to live like a Jedi. And so I think I'll continue to be here for as long as this is here. And if this ceases to be, I will still be a Jedi. And I hope others will continue to do the same. Uh, I don't have any other topics I'd like to bring up or discuss, but I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to do this interview. And in parting, I will say, may the force be with you. Have a great day.